The Galactic Dominion had ruled the spiral arm of the galaxy for 12,000 years. They had conquered over 1,000 worlds and destroyed any species that dared to stand against them. The Vectari were the ruling species of the Dominion. They were tall, reptilian creatures with scales that changed color based on their mood. Their eyes were cold and calculating. They had never lost a war. They had never met an enemy they could not crush within days. High Commander Zorvax stood on the bridge of his flagship and looked at the stars through the massive viewing window. He was the greatest military leader the Dominion had produced in centuries. He had personally overseen the destruction of 17 civilizations. To him, war was not about honor or glory. It was simply about efficiency. You found a weaker species, you crushed them, and you took their resources. That was the natural order of things. His second-in-command, a younger Vectari named Krath, approached him with a data tablet. The scales on his neck were tinted with excitement. "High Commander, our scouts have detected something interesting," Krath said. "Radio signals coming from a small planet in an unexplored system. The signals suggest a primitive civilization. They call themselves humans." End quote. Zorvax took the tablet and reviewed the data. The planet was called Earth by its inhabitants. It was a small blue world orbiting an average yellow star. The humans had only recently developed space travel. Their technology was primitive compared to the Dominion. Their largest warship was barely the size of a Vectari patrol vessel. "How many of them are there?" Zorvax asked. "Approximately 8 billion on their home world. They have small colonies on a few other planets and moons in their system." Zorvax made a sound that passed for laughter among the Vectari. 8 billion primitives with basic technology. This would not even qualify as a real conquest. It would be more like stepping on insects. "Set course for their system," he ordered. "We will add their world to the Dominion. Prepare the standard subjugation fleet." 300 warships jumped into hyperspace. It would take them only a few days to reach the human system. Zorvax did not expect any real resistance. He had seen this scenario play out hundreds of times before. The primitives would see the size of his fleet. They would realize the futility of fighting. They would surrender and become slaves of the Dominion. It was always the same. He was very wrong. Captain Danny Morrison stood on the bridge of the constellation and watched the stars. He was 53 years old with graying hair and calm blue eyes. He had served in the United Earth Defense Force for 30 years. He had seen combat during the Mars Rebellion and the Titan Crisis. He was a quiet man who did not speak much, but when he did speak, people listened. The Constellation was humanity's newest deep space patrol vessel. It was not a large ship by any standard. It had a crew of 93 people and carried enough weapons to defend itself against pirates and small threats. It was currently on a routine patrol mission near the outer edge of the solar system. Lieutenant Katie Flores was monitoring the sensor station when the alarm started blaring. She was 28 years old with dark hair and sharp eyes. She had graduated top of her class at the academy and had been assigned to the Constellation 6 months ago. "Captain, we have multiple contacts emerging from hyperspace," she reported. Her voice was steady, but there was tension underneath. "I am counting over 300 vessels. They are not responding to our identification requests." Danny walked to her station and looked at the sensor display. The ships were massive. Each one was easily 10 times the size of the Constellation. Their design was alien and unfamiliar. He felt a cold sensation in his stomach, but his face remained calm. "Try all communication frequencies," he said. "Send a standard greeting and request their intentions." Katie worked her console rapidly. "No response on any frequency, sir. They are ignoring all our hails." The alien ships began to form an attack formation. Danny watched them move with a precision that spoke of long practice and absolute confidence. These were not explorers or traders. These were conquerors. He turned to his crew. Every face on the bridge was looking at him. Some were scared. Some were confused. All of them were waiting for his orders. "All hands to battle stations," Danny said quietly. "Charge all weapons and raise shields to maximum." His first officer, Commander Paul Griffin, stepped closer. Paul was a large man with a bald head and a thick beard. He had served with Danny for 15 years. "Sir, there are over 300 of them," Paul said in a low voice. "We cannot win this fight." Danny nodded slowly. "I know. But we can make sure Earth knows what is coming. And we can make sure these aliens remember this day." He activated the ship-wide communication system. His voice reached every corner of the constellation. "This is the captain. We are facing an unknown hostile force of overwhelming numbers. I will not lie to you. Our chances of survival are very small. But we are the first line of defense for our home. Every second we fight is a second that Earth has to prepare. Every hit we land is data that our people can use. We are going to show these aliens what humans are made of." He paused and looked around the bridge at his crew. These were good people. They had families back home. They had dreams and hopes and plans for the future, and they were all going to die today. "It has been an honor serving with each and every one of you," Danny finished. The Vektari opened fire without warning. Green plasma bolts streaked across space and slammed into the constellation's shields. The ship shook violently. Alarms screamed. Sparks flew from damaged consoles. "Return fire," Danny ordered. "Target the lead ship. Give me everything we have." The constellation's weapons fired back. Missiles and energy beams struck the lead Vektari cruiser. The damage was minimal, but it was real. The aliens had expected no resistance at all. They had expected immediate surrender. They did not get it. The battle lasted 7 minutes. The constellation fought with everything it had. Danny directed the ship with calm precision even as explosions tore through the hull around him. Katie kept the sensors running even as her station caught fire. Paul led damage control teams even as the ship broke apart piece by piece. They managed to cripple 2 Vektari cruisers before the end, and in the final moments, Katie successfully transmitted a distress signal to Earth. The signal contained all the sensor data they had gathered: ship configurations, weapon frequencies, shield patterns, everything. Danny watched the final torpedo heading toward his bridge. He thought of his wife back on Earth. He thought of his daughter who was starting college next month. He hoped they would be okay. The constellation exploded in a ball of fire and metal. On the Vektari flagship, High Commander Zorvax reviewed the battle data with confusion. Not one escape pod had launched from the human ship. They had fought until complete destruction. They had chosen death over surrender. "Strange behavior," Krath observed. Perhaps they were too primitive to understand the concept of mercy. Zorvax was not so sure. There had been something in the way the humans fought. A determination that he had never seen before. But he pushed the thought aside. One ship meant nothing. One small victory meant nothing. "Set course for their home world," he ordered. "We will teach them the cost of resistance." The fleet jumped into hyperspace. Zorvax had already forgotten about the constellation and its crew. He did not know that Danny Morrison's final transmission had reached Earth. He did not know that humanity was already mobilizing. He did not know that he had just made the worst mistake of his life. The humans were coming. And they were angry. The distress signal from the constellation reached Earth Defense Command at 3 in the morning. Within 30 minutes, every major leader on the planet had been woken up. Within an hour, the United Earth Defense Council was assembled in Geneva. Within 2 hours, the whole world knew that humanity was no longer alone in the universe, and that they were under attack. Admiral Ben Carter stood at the head of the council table and looked at the grim faces around him. He was 61 years old, with white hair and a scar that ran down the left side of his face. He had earned that scar during the Titan crisis 20 years ago. He had hoped his fighting days were behind him. He was wrong. At approximately 2200 hours last night, the patrol vessel Constellation encountered an alien fleet near the outer edge of our solar system, Ben began. His voice was heavy with grief but steady with purpose. Captain Danny Morrison and his crew of 93 engaged the enemy and were destroyed. But before they died, they transmitted critical intelligence about the enemy ships and weapons. He activated the holographic display in the center of the table. Images of the alien vessels appeared. Data scrolled alongside them. The council members watched in silence. "We are calling them the Vektari based on intercepted communications. Their fleet consists of over 300 warships, Each ship is larger and more powerful than anything we currently possess. Based on their trajectory, they will reach Earth in approximately 14 days. Secretary General Nathan Cole leaned forward. He was a thin man with gray hair and tired eyes. He had dedicated his life to preventing wars. Now he had to lead humanity through one. "What are our options, Admiral?" he asked. "We fight," Ben said simply. "We have no other choice. Surrender is not an option." Captain Morrison's crew showed us that these aliens do not offer mercy. They expect complete submission, and based on historical patterns from other species they have encountered, submission means slavery or extinction. Dr. Maria Santos, the chief scientific advisor, stood up and walked to the display. She was 45 years old with dark hair pulled back in a tight bun. She had spent her career studying theoretical physics. Now she was analyzing alien weapon systems. "The data from the constellation gives us some hope," Maria said. "The Vectari technology is advanced but not invincible. Their shields operate on predictable frequencies. If we can match those frequencies with our weapons, we can penetrate their defenses. Their weapons are powerful, but have slow recharge rates. That creates windows of vulnerability between shots." She pulled up more data. "Their ships are large and heavily armored but not very maneuverable. Our smaller vessels can outrun them in close combat. If we fight smart, we have a chance." "What kind of chance?" Nathan asked. Maria hesitated. "A small one, but a chance nonetheless." Ben stepped forward again. "We have 14 days to prepare. Every ship we have will be brought to Earth orbit. Every weapon we can build will be built. Every soldier we can train will be trained. We are going to throw everything we have at these aliens." He looked around the table at the leaders of humanity. "I am not going to stand here and tell you we are going to win. I do not know if we will win, but I know we are going to fight, because that is what Danny Morrison and his crew died for. They bought us time with their blood. We will not waste it." The council voted unanimously to mobilize for total war. The order went out to every nation on Earth. Old rivalries were forgotten. Old conflicts were set aside. For the first time in human history, the entire species was united against a common enemy. Factories that had been producing cars and appliances switched to military production. Scientists abandoned their research projects to work on weapons and defense systems. Retired soldiers put on their uniforms again. Young people lined up at recruitment centers. Even children wanted to help in whatever way they could. In a small workshop in Texas, engineer Chris Palmer worked around the clock on a new missile guidance system. He was 38 years old with messy brown hair and dark circles under his eyes. He had not slept in 2 days. He did not plan to sleep until the work was done. His wife, Amy, came into the workshop with a cup of coffee. She was 35 with blonde hair and worried eyes. She set the coffee on his workbench and stood beside him. "You need to rest," she said softly. Chris shook his head without looking up from his work. "I will rest when this is finished. These missiles need to be able to track targets that move faster than anything we have ever seen. The standard guidance systems will not work." Amy watched him work for a moment. She had known him since college. She had never seen him like this. There was a fire in him that had not been there before. "Do you think we can win?" she asked quietly. Chris finally looked up. His eyes were tired but determined. "I think we have to. So we will figure out how." Across the planet, millions of people were having similar conversations. Parents telling their children that everything would be okay. Soldiers saying goodbye to their families. Scientists pushing themselves beyond exhaustion. Everyone doing whatever they could. Commander Jake Sullivan was assigned to lead the first assault wing of the Defense Fleet. He was 34 years old with short black hair and sharp green eyes. He had been a test pilot before joining the military. He was the best pilot humanity had. His squadron consisted of 12 fast attack fighters. They had been training non-stop since the alert came. Every pilot knew that they would be the first to engage the enemy. Every pilot knew that most of them would not survive. Jake gathered his squadron in the briefing room. Lieutenant Megan Torres sat in the front row. She was 26 with red hair and freckles. She was his communications officer and one of the best he had ever worked with. I am not going to give you a speech about glory or honor, Jake said. This is not that kind of fight. This is about survival. Our survival. Our family's survival. The survival of everything we have ever known. He looked at each pilot in turn. The aliens think we are primitives. They think we will break and run. They are wrong. We are going to hit them so hard they never forget it. And if we die making them bleed. The pilots nodded. There was no cheering, no battle cries, just quiet determination. On the other side of the solar system, the Vektari fleet continued its approach. High Commander Zorvax was confident and relaxed. He had received reports from his scouts that the humans were gathering their ships near their home world. They are concentrating their forces in one place, Krath observed. That will make our victory even easier, Zorvax agreed. The humans were behaving exactly as expected. They were frightened and desperate. They were making a last stand that would accomplish nothing. In 2 weeks, Earth would belong to the Dominion. He did not know about the weapons being built. He did not know about the strategies being planned. He did not know about the determination burning in the hearts of 8 billion humans. He thought he was flying toward an easy victory. He was flying toward his doom. The countdown continued. 14 days became 13. 13 became 12. Every hour, humanity grew stronger. Every hour, the Vektari came closer. The storm was gathering, and soon it would break. The Vektari armada emerged from hyperspace near the orbit of the moon. High Commander Zorvax stood on his bridge and looked at the blue planet in the distance. It was a beautiful world. Soon it would belong to the Dominion. Soon its people would be slaves. Then he saw the human fleet, and his confidence flickered for the first time. Every ship humanity possessed had been brought to Earth orbit. Battleships and cruisers formed the main defensive line. Smaller destroyers and frigates filled the gaps. Fighters and bombers waited in formation behind them. Orbital defense platforms bristled with weapons. Even civilian vessels had been retrofitted with armor and guns. It was not enough to match the Vektari fleet in size or firepower. But it was far more than Zorvax had expected. They have gathered everything, Krath said with surprise. Every ship they have is here. Zorvax recovered quickly. Good. That means we can destroy them all at once. No hunting down scattered remnants. No lengthy occupation. One battle. And their world is ours. He gave the order to attack. Admiral Ben Carter watched the alien fleet begin its approach from the bridge of his flagship, the Resolute. Around him, his crew worked with calm efficiency. They had trained for this moment. They were ready. All ships, hold formation until my command, Ben said into the fleet-wide channel. Let them come to us. Let them think we are afraid. The Vektari opened fire at extreme range. Green plasma bolts streaked across space. Human ships took hits. Shields flared. Some vessels exploded. But the line held. Steady, Ben said. Steady. The Vektari came closer, confident that the humans would break. They did not understand why the humans were not retreating. They did not understand why the humans were not surrendering. When the enemy fleet entered optimal range, Ben gave the order. All ships, attack, execute Battle Plan Alpha, hit them with everything. The human fleet surged forward. They did not charge blindly. They moved in coordinated waves, each group targeting specific weaknesses that Maria's analysis had identified. Missiles streaked toward Vektari engine sections. Energy beams targeted weapon arrays. Fighters dove through gaps in the enemy formation, striking at vulnerable points. Commander Jake Sullivan led his assault wing directly at a Vektari carrier. His fighter shook as enemy fire exploded around him. Warning alarms screamed. But he kept his course steady. All wings, focus on their shield generators, Jake ordered through gritted teeth. Take them down, and the bombers can finish them. Lieutenant Megan Torres worked her console beside him, coordinating attacks and relaying targeting data. Her voice was calm despite the chaos around them. Shield generator located on the port side, Commander. Weak spot identified. Jake rolled his fighter through a wall of plasma fire and launched his missiles. They struck true. The carrier's shields flickered and died. "Bombers, you are clear," Jake called out. "Hit them now." A wave of human bombers descended on the crippled carrier. Explosions tore through its hull. Fire bloomed in the vacuum of space. The massive ship began to break apart. On the Vektari flagship, Zorvax watched with growing disbelief. His ships were taking damage. Real damage. The humans were not fighting like frightened primitives. They were fighting like trained warriors. "How are they adapting so quickly?" Krath demanded. "Every time we adjust our tactics, they change theirs." Zorvax did not answer. He had no explanation. The Dominion had conquered thousands of species. None of them had fought like this. None of them had learned so fast, but the Vektari still had numbers and firepower. For every ship they lost, the humans lost 3. The battle became a grinding war of attrition. Human vessels were destroyed, one after another. The defensive line began to shrink. Admiral Carter watched his fleet dying. Good ships, good people, all being torn apart by alien weapons. But they were taking the enemy with them. The Vektari fleet was bleeding too. Then he made a decision that would change the course of the battle. "All ships, this is Admiral Carter. New orders. If your ship is crippled, if you are going down anyway, do not retreat. Ram the nearest enemy vessel. Take them with you. Silence on the communication channels." Then, one by one, acknowledgements came in. The first ship to execute the order was a damaged destroyer called the Valor. Its engines were failing. Its weapons were offline. It had no chance of survival. Its captain, a young woman named Lisa Chen, aimed her dying ship directly at a Vektari cruiser. She accelerated to maximum speed. The Vektari tried to destroy her, but it was too late. The Valor slammed into the cruiser's midsection. Both ships exploded in a massive fireball. Zorvax watched in horror. Then it happened again. And again. Crippled human ships stopped trying to escape. Instead, they turned and charged at the nearest enemy. Captains with failing life support drove their vessels into Vektari hulls. Crews with no hope of survival used their ships as weapons. "They are insane," Krath whispered. "They are completely insane." Zorvax could not understand it. In all his years of conquest, he had never seen anything like this. Species surrendered when defeat was certain. They tried to survive. They did not throw away their lives just to cause damage, but the humans did. They died laughing. They died cursing. They died sending messages to their families. But they did not die quietly. Every human ship that went down took at least one Vektari ship with it. The battle raged for hours. The space around Earth became a graveyard of twisted metal and frozen bodies. Human and Vektari ships burned together. Neither side retreated. Neither side surrendered. When it finally ended, both fleets were devastated. Of the 300 ships Zorvax had brought, only 47 remained operational. The human fleet had been reduced to a handful of battered survivors, but Earth itself remained unconquered. Admiral Carter sat in his damaged command chair and looked at the tactical display. They had lost so many. So many good people. So many brave souls. The cost had been terrible beyond imagination, but they had won. Against all odds, against an enemy with superior numbers and technology, humanity had held the line. He opened a channel to the surviving ships. His voice was tired but steady. "This is Admiral Carter. The enemy fleet is retreating. I repeat, the enemy is retreating. Earth is safe." For a moment, there was silence. Then cheers erupted across every ship. Crew members embraced. Soldiers wept. The impossible had happened. They had survived. On the Vektari flagship, Zorvax ordered his remaining ships to withdraw to the edge of the solar system. He needed to regroup. He needed reinforcements. He needed time to understand what had just happened. He looked back at the blue planet growing smaller in his viewing window. He had expected an easy victory. He had expected weak primitives begging for mercy. Instead, he had found monsters. Creatures who would rather die than submit. Creatures who turned their own deaths into weapons. For the first time in his long career, High Commander Zorvax felt something he had never felt before. He felt afraid. High Commander Zorvax sat in his private quarters aboard the flagship and stared at the tactical reports. His fleet had retreated to the edge of the human solar system to wait for reinforcements. A message had been sent to the Dominion, requesting an additional 500 ships. They would arrive in 6 weeks. Until then, he had to hold his position with 47 damaged vessels and crews that were shaken to their core. The battle for Earth had changed something in his soldiers. They no longer looked at humans with contempt. They looked at them with fear. 3 days after the retreat, Zorvax received a communication on an open channel. It was a human transmission. A face appeared on his screen. An older man, with white hair, and a scar down his face. Admiral Ben Carter. "This is Admiral Ben Carter of the United Earth Defense Force," the human said. His voice was calm and cold. "You came to our home. You killed our people. You thought we would be easy prey." 1. You thought we would be easy prey. Zorvax leaned forward, interested despite himself. "You were wrong," Carter continued. "And now we are coming for you. Every ship you have, every soldier you have, every supply convoy you send. We will hunt them all. You will not sleep. You will not rest. You will not feel safe until you leave our system forever." The transmission ended. Krath, who had been watching beside Zorvax, made a dismissive sound. "Empty threats. They lost most of their fleet. What can they possibly do against us?" Zorvax was not so sure. He had seen what humans could do when they were desperate. He did not want to discover what they could do when they were angry. He learned the answer 3 days later. A Victari supply convoy was traveling through the asteroid belt when the attack came. There was no warning. Human ships appeared from behind the rocks, fired their weapons, and vanished before the Victari could respond. In less than 2 minutes, 4 supply ships were destroyed. The escorts never even got a clear shot at the attackers. The same pattern repeated over the following weeks. Human ships appeared from nowhere, struck hard, and disappeared into the darkness of space. Supply lines were cut. Communication relays were destroyed. Isolated patrol vessels vanished without a trace. The humans were not fighting a conventional war anymore. They were hunting. Commander Jake Sullivan led many of these raids. His assault wing had been reduced to 6 fighters, but those 6 were the best pilots humanity had. They knew the asteroid belt better than the Victari. They knew how to hide in the radiation shadows of planets. They knew how to strike and fade before the enemy could react. "Contact ahead," Megan reported from her station. "Victari patrol. 3 ships. They have not detected us." Jake studied the tactical display. The Victari ships were moving in a standard search pattern. "Predictable. Vulnerable. All wings, attack formation Delta," he ordered. "We hit them fast, and we hit them hard. 30 seconds and then we are gone." The human fighters descended on the patrol like wolves on sheep. Missiles and energy beams tore through the Victari ships before they could raise shields. In 23 seconds, all 3 vessels were crippled. The human fighters vanished into the asteroid field before reinforcements could arrive. On the ground, the story was the same. The Victari had established a garrison on a small moon to serve as a forward base. They had 300 soldiers and heavy weapons emplacements. They thought they were safe. Sergeant Ryan Hayes and his Special Forces team proved them wrong. Ryan was 32 years old with a shaved head and cold gray eyes. He had been in special operations for 10 years. He had fought in jungles and deserts and frozen wastelands. Now he was fighting on an alien moon against creatures from another world. His team of 12 soldiers approached the garrison under cover of darkness. They moved in perfect silence, communicating only through hand signals. Each soldier knew their role. Each soldier was prepared to die. They reached the garrison's main power generator without being detected. Ryan placed the explosive charges himself, taking care to position them for maximum damage. When the charges were set, he gave the signal. The explosion lit up the night. The garrison's power grid collapsed. Lights went out. Weapons systems went offline. Defense shields failed. The Vektari soldiers stumbled out of their barracks in confusion, trying to understand what was happening. They ran straight into the waiting guns of Ryan's team. The battle was short and brutal. The humans had surprise and night vision. The Vektari had numbers but could not see their enemies. By the time dawn came, the garrison was destroyed. All 300 Vektari soldiers were dead. Ryan's team suffered 2 casualties. He mourned them briefly, then led his surviving soldiers to the extraction point. "They do not know how to fight like this," Ryan told his team as they flew back to base. "They have been the predators for so long that they have forgotten what it is like to be prey. We are going to remind them." Back on his flagship, Zorvax received report after report of attacks and losses. His supply lines were in ruins. His soldiers were exhausted and terrified. Morale was collapsing. He had expected to spend these weeks preparing for the final conquest of Earth. Instead, he was fighting for survival. "We need to strike back," Krath urged. "We need to show them that we are still strong." "With what?" Zorvax demanded. "Half our ships are damaged. Our supply lines are cut. Our soldiers are afraid to leave the fleet." He stood and walked to the viewing window. The human sun was a distant point of light. Somewhere out there, human hunters were waiting, watching, planning their next attack. "I have fought many wars," Zorvax said quietly. "I have conquered many species. But I have never faced an enemy like this. They do not fight for territory or resources. They fight because they are angry. They fight because we hurt them. And they will not stop until we are destroyed or we are gone." Krath was silent. He had no answer. The weeks passed slowly. Every day brought new attacks. Every night brought new fears. The Vektari fleet huddled together for protection, jumping at shadows, expecting death at any moment. Finally, the reinforcement fleet arrived. 500 fresh warships emerged from hyperspace, their crews eager for battle. The Dominion had sent its finest warriors to crush the human rebellion once and for all. Zorvax felt hope for the first time in weeks. With this many ships, surely they could overwhelm the humans. Surely they could end this nightmare. He sent a message to Admiral Carter. A simple message. "Your time is over. We are coming." The reply came within minutes. It was not words, it was coordinates, a location near Mars, and a simple statement. "We will be waiting." Zorvax gathered his fleet, original ships and reinforcements combined. Nearly 550 vessels in total. The largest force ever assembled against a single planet. He set course for Mars. He was done being hunted. It was time to end this war. He did not know that he was flying into a trap. He did not know that the humans had spent weeks preparing for this moment. He did not know that every attack, every raid, every guerrilla strike had been designed to make him angry enough to attack without thinking. The humans were waiting. And they were ready. The Vektari fleet arrived at Mars, expecting a straightforward battle. They found something else entirely. Admiral Ben Carter had spent the previous weeks turning the Martian orbital zone into a killing field. Weapons platforms had been hidden in the dust clouds of the Martian moons. Mines had been scattered throughout the approach routes. Fighter squadrons waited in the shadows of asteroids. Every rock, every crater, every cloud of debris concealed a weapon or a ship. High Commander Zorvax led his fleet straight into the trap. The first wave of mines detonated against the lead ships. Explosions rippled through the Vektari formation. Before they could react, hidden weapons platforms opened fire from unexpected angles. Ships that tried to evade flew into more mines. Ships that held position were torn apart by crossfire. "It is a trap," Krath shouted. "They planned this." Zorvax roared orders, trying to organize his fleet. But the chaos was too great. Human fighters emerged from their hiding places, adding to the destruction. Small and fast, they darted between the massive Vektari warships, targeting engines and shield generators. Commander Jake Sullivan led his squadron through the heart of the enemy fleet. His fighters shook as explosions bloomed around him. Megan Torres called out targets from her station. "Carrier at 2 o'clock. Its shields are down." Jake banked hard and fired. His missiles struck true. The carrier began to break apart. "Another one down," Megan said. Her voice was tired but satisfied. "How many is that today?" "Not enough," Jake replied. "Keep scanning." The battle raged across the orbital zone. Vektari ships fell by the dozens. Human ships fell too, but they died selling their lives at the highest possible price. Every pilot who went down tried to take an enemy with them. Captain Leo Martinez commanded the destroyer Defiance in the center of the human line. His ship had been fighting for hours. The hull was scarred with damage. Half his weapons were offline, but the crew kept fighting. "Sir, I have the enemy flagship on sensors," his tactical officer reported. "It is trying to coordinate their fleet." Leo looked at the display. The flagship was Zorvax's vessel, the brain of the enemy operation. If they could destroy it, the battle would be over. "All batteries, target the flagship," Leo ordered. "Everything we have." The Defiance led a desperate charge toward the enemy command ship. A dozen other human vessels joined them. They pushed through walls of plasma fire, losing ships with every passing second. But they did not stop. On the flagship bridge, Zorvax watched the human ships coming for him. He ordered all defensive weapons to concentrate fire. He called for support from surrounding vessels. But the humans kept coming. Then, a single fighter broke through the defensive screen. A small craft, already trailing smoke and fire. Its pilot had taken a direct hit minutes ago. The fighter was dying, but it was still flying. Claire Davis was 24 years old. She had joined the military 2 years ago, right out of flight school. She had never expected to fight aliens. She had never expected to die in space. Her fighter's engines were failing. Her weapons were almost empty. She had one torpedo left, locked in her launch bay. And she could see the enemy flagship's bridge directly ahead. She thought about her parents back on Earth. She thought about her little brother who wanted to be a pilot just like her. She thought about all the people who would live if this war ended today. "This is for the Constellation," she said softly. "This is for everyone you killed." She pushed her engines to maximum and aimed directly at the bridge. Zorvax saw her coming. In the final moment before impact, her face appeared on his view screen. A young human female. Her eyes were not filled with fear or despair. They were filled with determination. She was smiling. The fighter hit the bridge, and the plasma torpedo detonated on impact. The explosion tore through the flagship's command section. Zorvax died instantly. Krath died beside him. The entire command crew was vaporized. Without their leader, without coordination, the remaining Vektari forces fell into chaos. Ships collided with each other, trying to retreat. Captains surrendered, rather than face more destruction. The battle turned into a rout. By the time it ended, the Vektari armada was shattered. Of nearly 550 ships, fewer than 60 remained operational. And those 60 had lost all will to fight. Admiral Carter accepted the surrender aboard the last surviving Vektari cruiser. The alien captain knelt before him, a gesture of submission that his species had never performed before. "You will return to your dominion," Carter said. His voice was tired but firm. "You will take your survivors, and you will leave this system. And you will deliver a message." He walked closer to the kneeling alien. "Tell your dominion what happened here. Tell them that we did not start this war, but we finished it. Tell them that humanity will never surrender, never submit, and never stop fighting as long as a single one of us draws breath." He leaned down until his face was close to the aliens. "And tell them this warning. Never attack the humans. Face our wrath, and survival is impossible. Remember those words, because if you ever come back, we will do this again. We will do it as many times as necessary. We will fight you until the stars burn out." The Vektari captain looked up at him with something that might have been respect or might have been terror. Perhaps both. "It will be done," he said quietly. "Your warning will be delivered." The remaining Vektari ships left the solar system the next day. They carried recordings of the battle, testimonies from survivors, and the bodies of their dead. They carried the story of a species that had refused to be conquered. The warning spread throughout the Dominion like fire. Within months, every species in their territory had heard the tale. Within years, it had become legend. Other species came to Earth eventually. Traders seeking commerce. Scientists seeking knowledge. Diplomats seeking alliance. Some came out of curiosity. Some came out of respect. Some came because they wanted to understand the creatures who had defeated the undefeatable. But none came seeking conquest. Ever. 100 years later, a young Vectari scholar discovered the old records in an archive. He watched the footage of human ships charging into hopeless battles. He watched pilots sacrifice themselves without hesitation. He did not understand. He took his questions to an elder, one of the last survivors of the original invasion. Why did they fight like that? The young scholar asked. They must have known they would lose. The elder looked at him with old eyes that had seen too much. That was their secret. They never truly believed they would lose. Even facing impossible odds, even surrounded by death, they believed they could win. And that belief made them dangerous beyond measure. But how? How could they believe something so irrational? The elder shook his head slowly. Because they are human. They do not accept the reality given to them. They fight to change it. They always have. They always will. He pointed to the stars visible through the window. The galaxy knows them now. The galaxy fears them now. Not because they conquered anyone, but because everyone knows what happens if you try to conquer them. What happens? The young scholar asked. The elder closed his eyes. For a moment, he was back in the fire and chaos of that ancient battle, watching human ships burn and human soldiers die, and human voices screaming defiance into the void. Extinction, he whispered. Extinction happens. And in the depths of space, humanity continued to grow. They explored new worlds. They built new ships. They made friends and allies among the stars. They became a power that none dared challenge. But they never forgot the lesson of the First War. They never forgot the price of freedom. And every year, on the anniversary of the battle, they gathered to remember those who had fallen, to remember Danny Morrison and his crew, to remember Claire Davis and her final flight, to remember all the brave souls who had died so that humanity could live. They remembered, and they made sure the galaxy never forgot the warning. Never attack the humans, face their wrath, and survival is impossible.